The Attorney General's office opened 3 investigations against the current secretary and 5 more secretaries of Public Services and Environment of the Archipelago Department. The control entity will verify whether there were budgetary inconsistencies in the contract for integral management of special waste on the island, possible breach of contractual obligations on the operation of the desalination plant, and finally, possible irregularities in the contracting of resources transferred by SOPESA.
In different processes, the Attorney General's office opened 3 disciplinary investigations against the current Secretary Asbil Bryan and 5 former Secretaries of Public Services and Environment of the department for alleged irregularities in the execution of 3 bilaterals. In the first case, the control entity is investigating Asbil Antonio Bryan Gomez for the period between 2021-2022 for alleged budgetary inconsistencies in the contract signed with Recuperaciones Naranjo Recycling SAS for the integral management of special waste on the island for an amount of 4,623 feet 333,330 million pesos. In a second disciplinary process, the control entity opened an investigation against Maria Paola Vélez Sosa for the period 2018-2019 and Johan Andres Mancilla, same period, for the alleged breach of contractual obligations agreed upon the operation and maintenance for the department's desalination plant. The third investigation is against Jennifer Indira Villalba from the period 2018-2019, Maria Paola Vélez Sosa and Johan Andres Mancilla, same period, for alleged inconsistencies in the contracting of resources transferred over the last 4 years by Sociedad Productora de Energía de San Andrés y Providencia, S.A. SOPESA, which should have been used for basic sanitation and environmental improvement projects. Finally, the Public Prosecutor's Office will send a copy of the file to the competent Attorney General's Office regarding the alleged irregularities in which the Deputy Director of Environmental Quality and Management of the Corporation for the Sustainable Development of the Archipelago, Coralina, Roberto Hudson Reeves, may have been involved. The Regional Prosecutor's Office of the Department of the Archipelago is conducting the proceedings in order to establish the occurrence of alleged irregular conduct and the circumstances of time, manner, and place in which they were committed, to determine whether they constitute disciplinary offenses and the possible damage caused. Those involved may request to be heard in an open hearing.
This weekend was the creation of the CIPRAT in the department. It's an entity responsible for the rapid reaction to the activities of criminal organizations that jeopardize the rights of the population.
In response to the warning call made by the Ombudsman's Office on the strengthening of criminal gangs, illegal migration, and social problems in the archipelago, the Minister of the Interior, Alonso Prada Gil, and the Human Rights Delegate of the Ombudsman Office, Ricardo Arias Macias, met with the authorities and community of the islands for the creation of Intersectoral Commission of Rapid Response to Early Warning, CIPRAT.
Estuvimos atendiendo la alerta temprana.
We were attending to the early call that were made to the government to do a better work in the archipelago of San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina. We have a gigantic responsibilities in social material coverage, in education, infrastructure, in the matter of the ICBF with the construction of the CDI, of the enormous and articulated work that we must do with the prosecution, police, and the armed forces of the persecution of the extension of drug trafficking that uses this passage as a transit of drug trafficking.
During the meeting, social leaders and members of community action boards requested urgent measures to address the increase in violence on the islands, strengthen population control, and preserve the rights of the racial ethnic community.
And in other news, desperate are relatives of the 13 missing migrants and 2 islanders who apparently set sail from San Andres Islands on October 12 at dawn. In recent news from the country of Costa Rica, it is mentioned that fishermen have apparently found vests and belongings of individuals, including cell phones.
12 days have passed since the 13 Venezuelan migrants and 2 islanders apparently set sail in a boat from San Andres Island. Since then, it is unknown where they could be or what could happen to them. Several versions are circulating through social networks. Recent media reports in Costa Rica indicate that relatives of some of the missing migrants received images and videos that appear to have been found in the memory of a cell phone found by a Costa Rican fisherman, along with vests and clothing presumed to belong to some of the migrants. In addition, messages are circulating through instant messaging social network indicating that the bodies of the missing person have been found. This information is not confirmed. Teleislas News, following up on this news, consulted with the port captaincy of the island. Unofficially, it is reported that the last notification received on the case is that vests were found in Costa Rica. This news agency will be following up on the development of this news.
And more than 6 tons of illegal fishing were seized by the National Navy in the last hours. The ship commander provided information about the confiscation and the reasons for it.
In the last hours, in the development of maritime sovereignty and control operations developing the sector of Bajo Nuevo, the National Navy managed to seize 6,357 kilograms of illegal fishing on board a Jamaican fishing vessel named Hope On. This is ship commander with more details.
Durante una operación de interdicción marítima desarrollada
During a maritime interdiction operation developed in the sector of Bajo Nuevo, 280 miles north of San Andres, the maritime interdiction of a vessel that was illegally fishing in that sector was achieved. This Jamaican flag vessel had on board 41 crew members and 7 smaller vessels to use the fishing gear with scuba tanks and compressors. This fishery totals 6.3 tons, and most of it is a species that has been banned in the archipelago since 2019 due to its great impact on the maritime ecosystems of the archipelago, namely the parrotfish.
The vessel was boarded by crew members of the RC Antioquia Missile Frigate, where it was corroborated that they did not have the authorization to carry out fishing activities by the port captaincy of San Andres. The Jamaican vessel was escorted and taken to the dock of the Coast Guard station of San Andres to carry out a thorough inspection by the crew members of the naval institution together with the environmental authorities of the department. The more than 6.3 tons of seized fish, including 5,990 kilograms of parrotfish, 16 kilograms of shark, 48 kilograms of lobster, and 303 kilograms of other species, were handed over to officials of Carolina and the island Secretary of Agriculture and Fisheries, who will be in charge of the final disposal of this food. The captain of the vessel was placed at the disposal of the Attorney General's office, and the other 40 crew members of the vessel were placed at the disposal of Colombian immigration authorities.
And in cooperation with the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, the Humboldt Institute, INVEMAR, the National University of Colombia, the Caribbean branch, national parks, and other entities or organizations conducted the monitoring and evaluation of potential effects of the passage of Hurricane Julia on October 8, 2022.
Monitoring and evaluation activities of the potential effects of the passage of Hurricane Julia through the department continues. This systematization of the activities describes the results of the assessments on the marine ecosystems of coral reefs and seagrasses in the islands of San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina, conducted by INVEMAR and Carolina between October 12 and 28th of this present year. Evaluations were made of the area of San Andres outside the coral reef on the east side in the north, west, and south sectors of the island, where it was possible to observe minor affectations of 15% with evidence of Julia. At the same time, sites of great impact by Hurricane Iota were visited, where some of the effects still persist. The most impacted sites in San Andres were the south and east sides of the island. In Providence and Santa Catalina, the INVEMAR and Carolina team monitored the permanent stations for the evaluation of the coral reef trend condition index using scuba equipment to verify the sites and those most impacted by Iota in order to quickly evaluate their status since 2020 and the fish species that inhabit them. effects by Julia were found to be less than 5% in the area of each site in the marine ecosystems. However, the presence of yellow band disease on Orbicella annularis and Orbicella faviolata species, bleaching, and possible SCTLD in other species was observed, a record that should be confirmed in subsequent visits.
And now let's learn about other facts that are news in our brief news section of today.
Janiki Regional Park will be temporarily closed from today until Wednesday, October 26th of this current year, in compliance with the park's management plan and the ruling of the Contentious Administrative Court of the Archipelago. The National Police conducted an operative deployment with the purpose of identifying illegal money collection sites. The uniformed officers inspected gambling establishments, verifying compliance with the regulations. The Departmental League Against Cancer held this weekend the Pink Walk for International Breast Day Cancer, with the aim of promoting early detection of this disease. Men and women dressed in pink mobilized around the center of the island to raise awareness and sensitize about strategies to prevent this disease, which continues to be more frequent in Colombia.